This is an inverted vitrectomy. Vitrectomy with perfluorocarbon assisted intraocular lens explantation using the stand-up technique in small pupil eyes. A step-by-step surgical procedure. A highly myopic, aphakic diabetic retinopathy patient with a non-dilating small pupil was referred for removal of a posteriorly dislocated intraocular lens. Using wide-angle vitrectomy viewing system, a 23-gauge pars plana vitrectomy was performed, including anterior segment cleanup of capsular and cortical remnants. The IOL resting on the macula was lifted with a perfluorocarbon liquid, PFC, to protect the retina and aid manipulation. With 25-gauge serrated forceps, it was stood vertically, the so-called stand-up technique. In the stand-up technique, the intraocular lens is placed vertically with the aid of the perfluorocarbon liquid, and the forceps grabs it between the haptic and the optic. The IOL escaped from the forceps and fell back on the macular area and was re-grabbed and guided with the haptics through the pupil into the anterior chamber. Under viscoelastic, the haptic emerged above the iris, followed by the optic, stretching the iris to allow passage. The second haptic was advanced and positioned on the iris, securing the IOL safely in the anterior chamber. So just a recap of the procedure so far. After the intraocular lens is safely put at the anterior chamber, we see here we're grabbing the intraocular lens and it fell again there, and then we grab it again, and you see after holding the lens, the first haptic comes out, the body stretches the pupil, and the second haptic just comes out safely, and the lens is put on the iris. You see intraocular lens, the size of the lens, and comparable to a small bubble of perfluorocarbon liquid. And that's the removal of the perfluorocarbon liquid very slowly up to the last droplet. Now we use the macular lens, and by creating this corneal incision, a self-sealing one, to attempt for the removal of the intraocular lens. As you see there, viscoelastic is put at the anterior chamber to protect endothelium, and with a venous scissor the lens is cut up to the middle, as you see it, very safely. Removal was initially hindered as the lens became stuck. The corneal incision was then enlarged to facilitate safe explantation. This rotating movement to actually get the intraocular lens out makes the surgery very safe. There is no damage to the lens except for the cut we have made for the maneuver, so the lens is intact. Now putting some sutures at the corneal incision, and endo laser is the next step of the procedure to actually protect the retinal periphery from any detachments, even though the patient had enough laser for diabetic retinopathy. Now at the end of the case, a small air bubble is put at the anterior chamber. I really appreciate your attention.